Good morning, everyone. My name is Julie Vaillancourt. I am one of the literacy specialists with Rockyview. So today I'm going to talk to you about teaching ELA or FLA online. And I'm going to share a few tips and tricks that might be helpful for you if you have to teach online. Keep in mind that some of the strategies and the templates that we have created might also be useful even if you're in a face-to-face environment. These are documents that you might be able to share with your students through Google Classroom or for students while they collaborate. So the first thing that I wanted to share was a Jamboard. Not sure if you guys are familiar with Jamboard, which is an extension from Google Suite. The first thing that when you teach online, that's a nice thing to do is just to do a check-in. This is a template that I took from online. And if you just Google Jamboard templates, there are thousands of templates already created. So don't feel that you need to create them yourself. But this template, for example, can be used with your class where before the class starts, you ask them to write their name on the post-its right here. And then you ask them, and you ask them to place the post-it wherever they feel. So today's Tuesday, second day in the first week back. To be honest, I feel kind of like a 3. And some students might feel like a 1 or like a 5 out of 5. But this is kind of a good way for you as a teachers to get an idea of how your students feel. As I said, to do a social emotional check-in, but you could also use this check-in to check to see if students understood. So for example, if you do a read aloud in your class, and after you ask them, okay, you guys, what did you like? Did you like the story? Was it an interesting story? You can ask them to drag the post-it there. If they understood the story, like it's actually like you can use this as an exit slip with every activity that you decide to do with your class. So something else that I wanted to share with you, teaching online that you might find useful, is our YouTube channel. So RVS Literacy. If you just Google it, it should be one of the first links that will pop up. On our YouTube channel, please like and subscribe. We do add a lot of video on a regular basis. You will find some videos that are specific to balanced literacy in an online environment. So you will see my colleague Susan here, who made a beautiful example on how to do a read aloud online. The first video explained how to do different parts of balanced literacy in an online environment. You will be also able to see some videos on how, like if you're curious about writer's workshop, how to do this in a grade 1 to 4 class, as well as 5 to 8. So we've got various videos that explain that. There's a playlist that we have going on for French. We have a colleague of ours, Heather, who has a fantastic website. So feel free to, not website, her channel or YouTube channel. So feel free to check it out. It's really good for the early emergent readers. We have another video here around sound wall, if you're curious about what is a sound wall and why using a sound wall. So anyway, just check out the YouTube channel. You may find a few things that might be useful. The other thing that I wanted to share with you is our website. If you click on it, so just Google Making Literacy Visible, we have added on our website a section specifically to gather resources, templates, things that we found online that could support teachers who are teaching online. So if you go to that first section on our website, you click here. And it will bring you to that section. The internet is a bit slow here. So there's a link to our website, our YouTube channel. And down here, you will find different documents that may be helpful to you. So if you're looking for activities in regards of reading, I would strongly encourage you to click here. In this document, we have highlighted the different components of balanced literacy with tips and tricks. On this first landing page, we give you some strategies on how to do a read aloud in an online environment, how to do a shared reading in an online environment. So we have a section for each component. The two sections, so guided reading, word work, independent reading. What I would encourage you to do is under each component, you can click and it will give you access to a folder where you'll be able to find the actual document. Now, the main two documents that have lots of information and templates are independent reading and word work. Now, I want you to keep in mind that this document that I'm showing my screen now, the independent reading, these are activities that your students can do independently, but you can also use those same template during your read aloud, your guided reading and shared reading. Ideally, before, especially in an online environment, before we send our students to do the task independently, we want to make sure that we have taught them, that we have established routines, that they are familiar with the expectations. So I would encourage any of these templates that I'm showing you now to first model them yourself in with your students. So as you can see, there's all kinds of templates, how to explore book characters. So this is a Jamboard that's already there. There's digital notebooks. So there's a wide variety of resources that we encourage you to look at. To be honest, it could be almost overwhelming because there's a lot of resources. So if you are looking for something specific, just write us an email and Susan and I, we will help you finding exactly what you're looking for. So we have this document for balance literacy for reading, but we have the same document for writing, in which we have same idea, provided you with templates to support your writing instruction in your class. Now, something that I'd like to talk about when you're teaching online is to keep it simple. Some of the questions that I received earlier today was like, how do I keep it simple? One way would be for you as a teacher, for example, if you're going to do a read aloud with your class, as you're reading, if you're having your own book, I would suggest for you to read it and then ask them tasks based on what you read. If I'm reading this book, for example, as a class during our synchronous session, we may discuss the content of this book. And then the writing task could be, okay, now students, I want you to do a retell of that story. I want you to do it orally so they can record themselves or just practice it in their head. And then for the next synchronous session, you may choose randomly some students to share the retell. They could do the retell in a sketch. They could act out the story. There's different ways to do it, but make sure that you have an extension based on your activity. I've talked about the retell, but you could ask your students to rewrite the story, for example. So I'm going to share with you one place where, if you don't have many books like this accessible, one place where you can access those books is on the Fontes and Pinel. So every teachers in Rocky View were given if you haven't received it, please check with your literacy lead at your school. They received an email earlier in the fall. So our Rocky View teachers received a code that gives you access to all of the Fontes and Pinel resources for the benchmark assessment as well as LLI. Now, these resources could be extremely helpful when you're teaching online. If I'm starting with the benchmark assessment, some things that, as many questions have been asked about, how do I assess reading? Should I do a benchmark assessment? And Fontes and Pinel recommend not doing it because you're not going to get accurate information, instead of doing one summative assessment, like a benchmark, what they recommend is doing a multitude of assessment, more formative assessment, and looking at all that data. Then it will help you determining where your students are, what are their needs, and what are the next step with those students. So when you click on the BAS, one place where you can find a lot of assessment are in this section called optional assessment. So where you click there, you will be able to see various assessments, such as where to start word tests. If you're not familiar with this word test, this is a great quick assessment that will help you determining the level that students are reading at. So the idea is that you've got various lists. You ask your students to write down those not to write down, sorry, to read those words to you, and you as a teacher, you will write down what they're saying. The idea here is for each, and the way you're filling this out, think of it as the same way as you're filling out a running record, where you're looking and writing down everything you notice. So for example, here, if we have friend and you're realizing that your student has trouble decoding friend, the word friend, then what you can simply do is ask that student, okay, if you just write the word and you ask the student, if the student just did and then quit, then read further the word, then you can put the word and just ask them to see what letter was difficult for them to read. It might be the R. So then what you may realize is that they have difficulty with that blend, the F, R together. So some activities that you could do with that is like, okay, guys, like let's think about other words that has that same blend. So it could be French, Friday. So you just make a list together. And if you're at home, then especially like if I'm doing this activity with a specific student and I'm noticing that this is the struggle that the student had, what I may encourage a student to do at home is look in any print that they may have at the house. It could be on the cereal boxes, it could be in the newspaper, it could be anywhere, where their task is to find 5 other words that has that same blend, the F and R, and they need to write it down for me. And then next time when we have a synchronous session or a small group instruction session, they need to share with me those 5 words, and I need to hear them reading them. So we're focusing on that blend specifically. So these are some examples that if you're going to take time to do an assessment, you want to extend it and make it into a task where your students get a chance to expand and practice more. So the where to start word test, you would get the students to read them. You're going to keep track of how many answers the student got right or wrong. And then you will use the direction form that will tell you if the student was reading in the list A, if the students got between 11 and 15 words correct, then it lets you know that the student is reading at about level C. Now, mind you that this is really just for decoding and not necessarily understanding. So this is a good test that you can use with your students. So as you can see under the BAS, there's different, you have rubrics to assess fluency, phrasing. You've got various tests that you can use. Another thing that could be extremely useful in this with the online resources is if you go to the LLI. Oops. When you go to the LLI, if I go to the orange system, for example, what I love about this is that now for this year, Fontes and Pinnell have made all their books available. So you can click on LNI Books, and this is the books that you can choose to do your read aloud during your synchronous. So we've got the books here. So for example, if I choose the book Rex, this will be a book. I would be in my Zoom or Google Meet, and I will share the screen with my student, like what I'm doing now. What I may decide to do, one model that we encourage teachers to use is the I do, we do, you do. So what I may do with my student might be, okay, you guys, I'm going to read it first, and then we will read it together, and then you will read it after on your own. So then I might say, okay, I'm going to read the first page. I like to swing. Now repeat after me. Let's do it together. Not repeat after me. Let's do it together. I like to swing. And this is when you would encourage like the choir reading, the choral reading where students are doing it. And then after it would be, okay, now your turn. Everyone turns their mic on and I want to hear you. Okay, let's read the next page. I like, so you would go through like this for the whole book. Some things that you may decide to do with your students, like, I'm noticing some patterns. What do you guys see? I like to swing. I like to learn. Then some students say, oh, there's a pattern. I like to. And then we realize that, this was the focus of this book, having students noticing this pattern, I like to. And then we may draw their attention into the word after, climb. And as you see, if you're using Zoom, you'll see that you've got some option like the annotation tools, which will allow you to highlight some words. So if you want to talk about, I'm noticing that the last word of the sentence, each one of those words are an action words. So then you can, let me erase this now. You can get them to notice and list for you. Let's list all together all the action words that you're seeing in this book. We have swing, run, climb, and you can write them down on a post-it. Now, the task of this might be for your students to go. So for the week, again, when I said earlier, keep it simple. The task might be, okay, you guys, now we read it together. Your task now is to create your own book. This story is about what Rex, the dinosaur, likes to do. Now, I want to know what each one of you like to do. So I want you to write me a book of things that you like to do. And that could be the writing exercise for the next day. The students may need to keep the same pattern. I like to. And then together, maybe in that first session, you brainstorm a lot of words. You may share those words for them in a Google Doc that they can access when they write their book. They can write their book just in a little piece of paper that they will share. Like, it doesn't have to be big and fancy. They can do it on paper. But what you're looking for is that pattern. I like to. Now, if you want to differentiate that task, if you know that for some students they already know that pattern, it's easy, then you may ask some students to add some juicy word. I like to swing. So what word could we use? High, for example. I like to run fast. So for some students, you may say like, okay, I want you to use the pattern I like to, add the action word, but then I also want you to add a juicy word. So these are quick ways to differentiate a task and build activities of the read aloud that you've done with your class. So as I said, the next task could be for students to write their own book. And then the following task could be, okay, now that you have written your own book, I want you to go and read your own story 3 times, or to 3 different people in your house, 3 different stuffies, your dog, your grandma, whatever, but read it to 3 people. So you want them to start feeling successful as they read. And then for the next synchronous session, one thing that you can have is having students reading their stories, or in this case, what would be fun to keep them engaged is that they would need to act out. I like to swing, I like to run, and the rest of the class would have to guess what the student is doing. So these are just different ideas of things that you can share, that you can do with your class as a way to keep it simple. Another option that I forgot to share with you with the LLI that is very interesting is the game maker option. So if you click here, you will see that you can create a game. You can choose whatever system. What it's going to do is it's going to draw the words from those reading levels. So if I'm clicking on create a game, you can see that I've got all the words here. I'll click select all. I'll click on one word and drag it in the column in the middle. And then, as you can see here on the right side, select an activity. I've got all these games that I can use those words to create an activity. So I may decide to do a checkerboard game. As you can see, it's using those words and plunking it there. It could be, and then you can print this as a PDF. Now, this might not be useful to print it in an online environment, but if you decide to do just this PDF, you may decide to share this screen and play this game as a class, for example. So you've got the checkerboard, you've got word card, the die template. That's nice when you're back in class where students can roll it and try to read it. So there's different word ladder, like there's different things that you can do. Another thing that I like, now these words might be too easy for some of your students, but another option, as you can see here, add custom words. You can add specific words that you want your students to have and create games. So you don't necessarily have to use the words that are provided, but you can use different words. One more thing that I want to share with you is when you're teaching online, especially for the early readers, is the University of Florida, if you write UFly, created this amazing website that has all early literacy Google slide templates ready to use that you can easily share with your students. So if you scroll down at the bottom of this page, you will see lesson structure. What I like about this is that they have planned different weeks for specific grades with all the activities already selected. So this is a good place to go if you're looking for ideas on what could it look like for a week. The other option that's really, really good is the instructional activity. So depending on what your needs are, you can click here. So for example, if I want to work on decoding and encoding skills with my students, I'll click here. If I want to do some word work, I will click here. And as you can see, you've got all these, like you've got the blending board, blending drill, manipulative letters as a PowerPoint of Google Slides. So everything is already there made for you. So I think this is it. As I said, there's a lot of information. Don't hesitate to reach out, share your needs, and Susan and I will be there and more than happy to help you finding what you're looking for. But I think the big thing is to keep it simple. Take it easy. In an online environment, it usually takes twice, if not 3 times more time to complete a task. So don't put too much expectation on yourself and just take it slowly. Thank you.